Hello and welcome to the session. Now let's continue discussion on some of the advanced topics. So we will see here how to wait for elements with what are the different types of wait mechanism which are available. So let us see. So we have first simply it is called as implicitly wait. Now implicitly wait, explicit wait and fluent wait. These are the three mechanisms we have. So let us see some theoretical part. So implicitly wait. So an implicitly wait is to tell WebDriver to poll the DOM for certain amount of time when trying to find an element or elements if they are immediately available. So let us go to this official documentation of Selenium website and let us understand what is their explanation. So it is the same thing. So different wait conditions here. So we have implicit wait, we have um, explicit wait, and we have fluent wait. Implicit weight. So again the same explanation here, you can go through what is it they want to say, but then that is what we will be seeing implicit weight. So in a nutshell, what happens is when you open up a browser, when you launch a browser, Chrome driver, and you go to a particular web page and you start finding the elements. So there is some time for every element to be loaded on the website, on your web page, on your browser. So uh, to wait for certain time and then find the element, that is where the wait mechanism is important. Now we can do this using implicit wait. So driver.manage.timeout and implicit wait. So you have to provide some logistic here. So 15 seconds it will wait. Now what happens is you try to find multiple elements. So if you find the element immediately without waiting, what happens is sometimes because of your network speed, because of your system resources, the web page may not load fully, and that is why you might get an exception. So to avoid that, you can put this implicit wait. So implicit wait is a global wait and it is available for all the elements. So what does it mean? It means that whatever element you start finding after this, after declaring this timeout implicitly wait, for every element it will wait for 15 seconds and then it will find the element. And if the element is not found within 15 elements, let's say you are finding this, so if it is not found within 15 seconds, then it will throw an exception. So we have some buffer time here so that the website or the web page contents are loaded. Remember, if the element is found within 15 seconds, then it will proceed to the next element and next element. So the only thing is, if you do not use this and you load the web page and you directly start finding the element, then you might not find the element immediately. You might find it after some delay. So this is basically that mechanism to wait for a particular element. Now on an average, if you see these elements on this website, they are correct element and they will be found. Now what I'm doing, I'm just changing, for example, something random here. Okay, so what happens is it will load the website, it will load the web page, it will declare the global timeout as 15 seconds, and it will start finding the element. Now this is a correct element, it will find it immediately and it will proceed for the next. Now this happens quickly because it is the element is found within 15 seconds. Now if you see this, this element will not be found because if you see this particular CSS is does not exist. There's no exact CSS like this. It's a fake element. So it will immediately not throw an exception, but it will throw an exception within this 15-second range. Okay, so within 15-second range, it will throw an exception, and of course, if there is an exception, it will not proceed further. So let us see. So depending on the network condition and system RAM and other resources, it might take a lot of time. It might take appropriate time, but as we have said, it is 15 seconds. We have to the global timeout is mentioned. So I'm just waiting for the program to finish, and within 15 seconds. Okay, so program is finished here. Now you see it will find this element, but for this element, line number 27, it will throw an exception. Line number 27, it has thrown an exception because the element was not found. But what happened is it actually waited for a longer time. So this is good that given your system resources, network condition, and other website slowness, you can wait for a certain time. Okay, let me just revert it back. And now when I run it, it will be very quick. Why? Because all the elements will be found within no time. And of course, driver.quit is there. That means the WebDriver will be closed quickly. Okay, 3 elements were found very quickly and program is finished. Okay, so this is implicit weight. Now let's talk about explicit weight, or sometimes also called as WebDriver weight. Now what is WebDriver weight, or also called as explicit weight? So they allow your code to halt program execution or freeze the thread until the condition you pass it resolves. So it is basically conditional weight, or also called as intelligent weight. What happens is you do click on some element or you do certain operation, and because of that, so let's see an example here. So this website, right? So now what I'm doing, I'm clicking on contact us. Now it the second page is loaded. Now the second page elements are loaded, but the thing is I don't know in how much time it will be loading. So I want to wait on certain condition or certain element or certain item, so that if that is displayed or that is visible or that is available, then I'm sure that I'm my all the elements on the second page are loaded. So that is basically conditional check. So that is what we are doing. That is the explicit weight. You can go to this location and see what is the what are the exact wording of the definition. Explicit weight. So you can go ahead and read this. It is almost the same thing. Okay, so what are the expected conditions? What are the conditions on which we are allowed to wait? So we can say that if any alert is present or if any element is visible. So if the condition is this, then only you wait. If the title is something, or if the text is visible, or if a particular element exists, element staleness and all. So these are the typical expected conditions. So we will see that with an example. Now I'm again going to that website, and what I'm doing, I'm declaring a WebDriver wait object here, variable here. And how to instantiate that? So new WebDriver wait, and I have to pass the driver and I have to pass the timeout second. So I will wait for 15 seconds for that condition to be true. Now what are the conditions to be true? So if you see here, I will just uh, rearrange this. Okay, so what I'm doing once again, I'm going to that particular website, and I'm after the driver is instantiated and all, I'm declaring a WebDriver wait object here. And now what I'm doing, I'm clicking on contact us, and after clicking on contact us, I want to make sure that, let's say in this example, I clicked on contact us, and I want to make sure that this order reference text box is present. So what I'm doing, I am setting up a condition that click on that or contact us, then wait, which is this variable, wait dot until and expected conditions. So I want to wait on some condition. What is the condition? I am expecting presence of element to be located by dot id and the element id or the selector. So what will happen? It will it will click on that contact us, new page will be loaded, and it will take some time to load. So during that loading condition, I would want to wait maximum up to 15 seconds for this condition to be true. If the condition is true, then it will proceed for next execution. If the condition is false, then it will throw an exception. Now this is little intelligence. Why? Because there is a expected condition additional facilities there, which was not there in the earlier implicit weight. Implicit weight is just a global weight, and it will just wait for the specified time, but there is no intelligence. So this is the intelligence part here. So it will wait on certain condition. Now what are the other things? If you see expected conditions class, and I will say just dot here. So there are this lot of expected conditions on which you can put a weight. Okay, there are so many conditions. So for simplicity, I'm using presence of the element condition, or the URL. Once I click on contact us, the URL should contain whatever, or I'm checking for invisibility of the element. So I can check if what happens is, if I from one page, if I go to another web page, then from the earlier page the element should be disappeared or invisible. So I will check for invisibility of the element. So for now, just let's run it. So for now, I'm checking the condition presence of the element located by this ID. So it will click on the contact us link. Now order ID is there. So it has entered some text in the order ID. So it has got that element. So wait is successful. Now this is successful. So I have sent. So remember wait variable, right? So when you say wait dot until and whatever condition you put, that will actually return you the web element, okay, by this selector. So you can use this element for your further operation. Now let's see another part. So find element and click on contact us, and once you click on contact us, I would want to wait if the next, after navigating to the next page, the URL should contains whatever is given here. So or you can put partial whatever here, so anything is possible. So URL contains, for example, contains means it will basically check for the subtext and not the full text. So let's just run it and see. So the URL should contain contact us. Okay, so URL has contained controller equal to contact. Right. So program is finished and process code with exit code 0. Now the last one is some other condition. So what is the other condition? Invisibility of the element located by uh, block block bestseller. Okay, so what is this exactly? So if I go to my home page, okay, this is the home page, and if you see here, there are these elements. So once I click on contact us, this element will be gone, or this element will not be visible, or it will be invisible. So that is what I'm checking. What I'm checking is invisibility of the element by this particular uh, locator. Let's just run it. Yeah, so the earlier element has vanished. It has gone as invisible, and that's how our program will finish. Yes, so program is finished here, and if you see, it has exited with code 0. So there is no exception. Now you can try this, like change some expected conditions, and obviously if the condition is not matching, it will throw an exception, and so on. So this is the explicit weight or WebDriver weight. Now there's one more called as Fluent Weight. So let us see that. So by the way, this is the hierarchy. So WebDriver weight. So we have weight in Selenium, implicit weight, explicit weight, and under explicit weight, we have WebDriver weight and Fluent weight. So just a recap. So most of the web applications are developed using Ajax and JavaScript. When a web page is loaded by the browser, the elements with which we want to interact may load at a different time interval. It depends on your system resources, network speed, and the load on the website and all. So to allow time for elements to be loaded, for example, loaded slowly or fast or whatever. Let's say the bottom elements of a particular e-commerce website, we have to use wait condition. So for example, to allow time when web page transition happens, whenever you're transitioning from login page to search page to checkout page and and payment page in an e-commerce website, so there are different elements which are loaded, and that is why you need to put a wait condition. Now, yeah, so let us see this, what is Ajax part, and then we will see Fluent Weight. Now, Ajax, asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So it is a technology which uses JavaScript to send receive between a browser and uh, to send receive content between browser and web server. It makes the web page more responsive by exchanging the data in behind the scene to avoid entire web page reloading. So what happens is, let's say for example this. Okay, so typically e-commerce website. So what happens is, you go to you buy something and some item and you add to the cart. Now for some reason you want to extend, you want to increase the quantity or decrease the quantity. So you can have up arrow, down arrow here. But now whenever you click on up arrow, down arrow, the price of that particular total for that particular item will automatically change. So this is asynchronous. Okay, so if you see, I have from quantity 1 I will make it as 5, so the price will change automatically. How it has changed automatically? Why the entire web page is not loaded again? This is because using Ajax. So using Ajax, this client will request to the server that I just want only this information and not any other information. So the data processing, the time is saved, and lot of resources are saved. But the problem is, it is difficult to identify these elements. So that is what is this Ajax, and we will have to work out a solution on it. For example, another Ajax thing is, let's say you log in here. Okay, it's a simple website. So you click on login. So one pop-up will come and you enter your correct credentials, and you want to log in, or you want to register yourself. So let's say sign in example. So the moment you enter the correct credential and click on sign in, this pop-up will be gone, and here your your icon or some username will appear, but the entire web page will still remain the same, or the entire website is not loaded. So this partial content interaction from your client to the server happens using Ajax. Okay, so it makes the web page more responsive by exchanging the data behind the scene to avoid the entire web page reloading. Okay, so entire web page is not reloaded, and that is basically saving time and resources. Now, how it affects Selenium to find the web element? So now we have seen here, right? So the price actually will change. So or some of the other elements will be loaded, or they will vanish, and so on. So it is our job to find the correct element based on the Ajax changes. So simple example is this website. Let me go here and show you. Yeah. So now let's say this website, just an example. So now what is happening, this is an image, and what happens is, let's say I click on it. So now the second image, second background will be loaded within some time. Now this interaction of this client, this browser with the backend server has happened dynamically using Ajax. So the entire web page is not loaded again, but just the partial content is loaded. So this is Ajax. So now how to, especially how to handle this kind of things? Why? Because only partial content is loaded and not the full content. So that is done using Fluent Weight. So its instance defines, so the instance of the object of Fluent Weight defines the maximum amount of time to wait for a condition, as well as the frequency with which to check the condition. Okay, so we have conditional check here, but we can also add a polling frequency. User may configure to wait to ignore a specific type of exception while waiting. So this is a official documentation of their from the Selenium. There's a Fluent Weight somewhere here. Yeah, Fluent Weight. So you can have this example and you can discuss, you can study more. But for now, let us see our example. So it is used to tell the WebDriver to wait for a condition as well as the polling frequency with which we want to check the condition before throwing in any let's say element not visible exception. So let us see this in little detail. So this is an explicit Fluent Weight example. So what I'm doing, uh, I'm going to that particular web page and I'm clicking on that image. Now, when I click on it, the backend calls will happen from client to server, and only limited or partial content will be returned from server to client, but not the entire web page. Now, eh, after returning that or during that process, if I want to find the the latest element, which is basically the latest content received from the server to the client, so what I can do, I can use something called as a Fluent Weight. So Fluent Weight, if you see here, Fluent Weight is again a class somewhere in Selenium package. And how to do it? So how to instantiate? So new WebDriver weight, new Fluent Weight here, and weight. So this is an object. So now see the what are the parameters we can pass? Weight dot polling every 1 second with timeout 15 second and ignoring no such element exception. So now what is this? So now the earlier WebDriver weight wherein we are putting a condition. So here what we can do is we can say that okay, poll for maximum of 15 seconds, okay, but retry every 1 second, polling every 1 second, and during that retry, if you encounter an exception, for example no such element exception, then you ignore it. Okay, one more time, poll every 1 second for that particular element, then maximum you can go for 15 seconds. Okay, you can go for whatever number of seconds you want, and for every polling retry, if you encounter any exception, for example no such element exception, then ignore it. Okay, so the point to remember here is we need to ignore any specific exception. Now we can ignore, for example, stale element reference exception or any exception, but it is always advisable to use a specific and correct exception. We will see that in the next example. Now this wait we have initialized here. Okay, so wait dot until, and we have to write a condition here. Okay, remember it's a, you can also put a condition there. So what is this? So we have to write, if you see this internal part, we have to actually implement a small method itself here. Okay, so that is the advantage, that inside the body of this wait dot until method we are defining a separate method on itself. Okay, that is the advantage here. So what is the separate method is basically it will return this element here. Okay, let's say this is the second element that will be loaded. Now what is happening here once again? So you have created an instance, you have initiated the object with some parameters, and that object you are using for your conditional check here. So this weight is basically coming from Fluent Weight, and inside Fluent Weight you are writing a method which is specific for a specific element to which we want to interact with. So I want to interact with this particular element. Okay, now let us see what is happening here. So as I said, it will click on that element, and it will wait for a some particular time frame so that the element is found, and it will poll it. So this is the polling part, polling every 1 second, and timeout of 15 seconds and ignoring. So let us just run it and see. Okay, so it has clicked on it already, and now it is waiting for the element, and you see next element is quickly loaded, and program would have finished by now. Yeah, program is finished now, and there is no exception here. Okay, there is no exception. Only thing is whenever the element is found, this image element, right? So I'm just putting get attribute and style. So style is like whatever attribute I'm getting. Now let us see another part. Let me just close the earlier browsers. Okay, now what I'm doing here, uh, in the Fluent Weight, instead of, I know that this is the exception I'll be getting, but by some means, if you put ignore some other exception. Of course, you can use any exception here which suits for your particular requirement. But for now, I definitely expect this. But I am, for purpose, for the sake of getting the exception type, what happens if the different exception is ignored, put as ignore. So we'll get an exception. That is what I want to demonstrate here. Let's just run it. Now what happens is within 15 seconds and after every 1 second polling, if the element is not found, then it will throw an exception. Okay, so it has clicked on that element and program is finished. And now if you see, it has thrown an exception on line number 42. Yeah. So this is something which is not happening. Why? Because I'm ignoring this exception. This exception will never be thrown. This exception will be thrown. So you have to use the exact exception here. Okay, so this is about Fluent Weight. Fluent Weight is introduced from because of there is some additional implementation done in Java 1.8 called as Lambda function. So this is basically Lambda function, and that is why you can use the Fluent Weight here. Now, yeah, so WebDriver weight and all. Now let us see some of the other concepts. Now this is a bit theoretical discussion. Now for day-to-day Selenium automation, during this automation, we encounter a lot of exceptions. So typically this like element not visible, no such element not selectable, or element not visible, or stale element reference exception, frame related, window related, and many other exceptions. Now this is good that you are getting exceptions and you are tackling it and you have to proceed. But so what are the things what you can do to handle the different exceptions? So now I have this list of 10 11 items, ways to handle the exceptions, and this comes with experience. So the more you do practice, the more you will have more mature you will be. So first thing, so find the exact web element to work on. This is really important. Why? Because we interact with many elements. So we use CSS, XPath, and different locators. Now it might so happen that we typically have a locator, but when the actual web page is loaded, that same exact locator may not be available. This typically happens when you are extensively using absolute XPath or XPath. So we have to be a little careful. We can use relative XPath here. It will take some time, but the program, the elements will be found definitely if you are using relative XPath or CSS. So find the exact element with whatever exact locator. Wait for element with expected condition. So we have seen expected condition as a part of Fluent Weight, and as a part of Explicit Weight. So expected conditions based on the element to be present, visibility of the element, alert is present, URL is this, title is this. So there are many type of expected conditions on which you can wait. So you can try that. Now add sufficient delay for page to load. So this is also one of the common thing, that let's say your automation works fine on your local, but the same automation, if you're executing from a remote machine or some other person is executing it, or if you're executing from a different network, then there are delays due to network latencies. So you have to consider the appropriate delay when the page is loaded. Now make sure if the element is visible on the screen. Now of course, uh, let's say you're loading an e-commerce website. So if you just scroll down below, the additional elements will be loaded as and when you scroll down. So uh, you have to check that whatever element you want to interact with, those are actually visible on the screen. Okay, so if they are not visible, see, the HTML will be loaded, the elements will be available, but they will not be visible. So you have to make them visible and then you interact with the web element. So you have to make sure the element is visible. See if Ajax are making the required elements not to appear. This is also good finding, that because of Ajax calls, a particular element may disappear. Now we have seen just the fluent weight condition. So this happens many places, and we have to keep a watch which elements are appearing, which elements are disappearing. Sometime use JavaScript executor method, like we have seen, execute script, execute asynchronous script. So it is the case that because of the backend development, there are some JavaScript elements are loaded, so we have to use JavaScript executor. We have seen the example of JavaScript executor already, so we can use that one for our benefit. Now always start your test by clearing cookies, incognito, no plugin extension and all. So now clearing cookies, so incognito mode. So this is basically having a specific browser setting or a browser profile and specific extension or no extension and all. So our intention here is to test a particular web page or a website, and we are not here to test the browser, how browser is loading the web page and all. We want to check the website is loading properly with minimum browser specific setting. So either we can go for a specific browser profile or some specific setting, for example incognito mode, no extension, and specific browser size, clearing the cookies and all. So uh, we can start with this fluent weight. So if the uh, uh, implicit weight or the explicit weight is not helping, then we can try out the fluent weight. So fluent weight we have seen just now. There is a mechanism to poll for a certain time, polling frequency, and you can ignore some exception within that polling period. So this is also good thing to try. Refresh the web page if required to get the required element. Now this is also very common, that some of the elements may become stale element, or some of the elements are not loaded always. They, you might have to refresh the web page, so that can also be tested. Find the required element fresh and instantly. Now it so happens that I have seen in some of the projects or some of the automation code, it is what is done is 10 elements or 5 elements are, find the element first, and then on each and every element you start interacting. So this should be avoided. So find one element, do some action whatever you want, and then go to the next element, then again do the action on that next element and go to again the third element, and so on. So find the element instantly, do the action, and then proceed. Now, has the element attribute XPath is changed from the last version to the new version? This is also important. Now, what happens is, let's say your developer will release this particular web page. Okay, so you test it, with some XPath, CSS, or whatever. Now, version 2 of the same website has come up. So in the second version, unknowingly or knowingly, let's say some elements are getting added. Let's say some elements are getting added or they are getting removed, and whatever. Now, because of that, what happens is, let's say you are finding the element by XPath or CSS, and that has worked in the earlier version. Let's say version 1 it was working, version 2 it is not working. So we have to always be careful that in the subsequent versions of that web page or a website, the element selectors are they changed because of some reason, and how can we do a maintenance of our automation, that we have to use the latest elements and all, right? So if the attributes or XPath is changed, then we have to accommodate that. Okay, now this is based on experience and all. Of course, the more you practice, the more you will be confident. But it so happens that if the thing works for some reason, then obviously you take a break, take a deep breath, and try again. Obviously, the answer is with you. You have to just try in a different way. Okay, now let us see one more topic here called as SSL certificate. SSL secured socket layer is a standard security technology for establishing an encrypted link between a server and a client. Now, let's say you're working on some security related aspects, for example, banking related projects or insurance related projects, wherein you'll be working on a SIT or UAT environment or basically lower environment, but for security reason that particular lower environment also you have to access, you will not be given a free access, so you have to access it with some mechanism. So one of the mechanism is you have to install the SSL certificate and at your place. So one simple example is this. uh, Yeah. So let's say I go to this sample website, and the moment I go there, it will give me something, some error that your connection is not private. So a certificate has to be installed, or something related to SSL certificate. So normally what I do, I click on advanced, and I proceed to explore it as an unsafe user. So once I do that, I will be going to, let's say, this website. So consider that this is a similar situation in for your particular project. So what can be done is, if you see here, uh, we have a class called as desired capability, wherein we have to pass on these two options or capability: accept SSL certificate, yes, and accept insecure certificate, yes. So when those two parameters are passed, then it will accept the certificate, the one what we have done here. So click on this and click on this. So basically that will happen in backend, and it will basically you know overcome the SSL limitation. So let's run it. Okay, so it has accepted the SSL, and it has gone to the correct URL or correct web page. Okay, now let me just do, I will just comment this out. So I'm not specifying any SSL capability option. So basically I'll be passing empty here. Then let us see what happens. So in this case, the web page, the SSL accepted web page will not be shown, but only the earlier web page will be shown. Yes, so it will show you, it has not yet accepted the certificate and all, and it will not proceed. So in order to do that, we have to pass on these two capabilities. So that's it for this session. Let's continue other topic in the other session. Thank you.